Let's talk about prioritization. This is something that I didn't know to expect as a lawyer, as a business owner, that being able to prioritize is a skill that is needed and makes my life so much easier. So when I wrote this, I was chapter 1, section, the grind. The law profession also suffers from an urgency culture. Everything has to be done right now. There's no sense of priority. So every task is treated as an emergency that has to get taken care of right away. Lawyers face constant interruptions from team members and clients that make it impossible to focus on getting things done. The workday feels hectic, chaotic, and unorganized. If you don't take action to change the way your practice operates, the law firm grind can become like quicksand. As the days, months, and years go on, the grind will exhaust you more and more until you finally reach a breaking point. I know because I've been there, and I've seen countless attorneys experience the same. But I believe you shouldn't have to hit rock bottom to figure out that something needs to change. Albert Einstein said, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting new results." Yet so many attorneys hear their morning alarm go off, rush to work, and repeat the same endless slog they faced yesterday. I don't know if Albert Einstein actually said that or if it was just attributed to him. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting new results. I've heard that so many times in my life. I love it because I don't know about you, but there's been many times in my life where I've kind of felt stuck in a loop, wanting things to change, but not knowing how to change them, expecting new results, doing the same thing. So let's talk about prioritization. This is something that I didn't know to expect as a lawyer, as a business owner, that being able to prioritize is a skill that is needed and makes my life so much easier. So when I wrote this, I was thinking about how at one point, or many points, not one point in my career, I started out as a W-2 employee. So I just did what I was told. I didn't really have to exercise a ton of prioritization because, for example, when I worked for the federal government, they told me what I had to do and when I had to do it by. So they handled the prioritization part. There was some level of prioritization when I was in private practice working at other firms, one more than the other, because one, I more so just got, a caseload and I got different assignments and it was more straightforward, like when I worked for the federal government. But then there was another firm I worked at that I was just getting thrown a lot of different things. So I definitely had to exercise and practice prioritization. And that's when it started for me, just like understanding how important it is. But I don't think I did a really great job of it at that time because it was new to me. That is definitely something that's when you're a little bit, you've progressed in your career or you're dealing with like higher level assignments like management. When you're first starting out, when I was first starting out, like I said, people tell you what to do and when it's due by. So I didn't necessarily have to worry about prioritizing so many things. Now at this point, as a practice owner, and this goes for any business, I don't think this is not exclusive to law practices, but you have so many responsibilities. To prioritize is to breathe. You have to be able to prioritize, or like I wrote, it gets chaotic and it gets chaotic fast. So I felt like my first couple of years on my own were a little chaotic because I wasn't properly prioritizing. If a client was upset, I would be right there to pick up the phone. It doesn't matter if the reason that they were upset was something someone else could deal with. Their reason for being upset doesn't matter, right? It's valid. If they're upset, they're upset. But it doesn't mean that I need to take it on. It doesn't mean that I need to fix it, right? And I did a lot of that early on. I did a lot of fixing. As a new business owner, I was scared. I was nervous that, one person being upset with me would mean that everything is going to fail. And that's not the case. People get upset, and more times than not, it's about them, not me. And it's about things that I can't control. And what I learned as well was if it is something that I can control, then I need to take accountability and I need to fix it. So that's just the attitude that's worked for me over the last few years. That's really when it comes to prioritizing dealing with clients. With team members, it's the same thing. A lot of times, things that earlier on people would come to me with weren't prioritized. They weren't priorities. They weren't time sensitive. They weren't urgent. But I take accountability for the fact that I had a lot of interruptions in my early years that threw me off. Of course, this brief's going to take me so much longer to do because I'm getting interrupted by, whether it's clients or team members. But I had to take that on. I had to take that responsibility because I wasn't giving them what they needed to not interrupt me. Insert two things. One is standard operating procedures, resources. When I'm expecting my team members to be able to handle client calls, client concerns, inquiries from Social Security, whatever it might be, if I haven't scripted how exactly they're supposed to do it or provide them resources, then that's my fault. Now, of course, early on, I didn't have all those resources. They took years to build. But now the expectation is I'm not going to get interrupted for things because I've spent a long time creating resources and standard operating procedures so that if you have a question, you have an answer. So now when a team member comes to me with a question, how to do this, I'm not clear on this, they're going to say to me, listen, I have consulted with the standard operating procedure relevant to this question. I'm not clear on the answer. I've looked on the internet. I've done my own research. I'm still not clear on the answer. Can you please help me clarify what I'm supposed to do in this situation? Now, I will tell you that happens very rarely because our materials and our resources are pretty solid. Not pretty solid, they're very solid. And we have, videos for things, we have trainings for things, we have documented examples, etc. So with standard operating procedures in place, I don't have a reason for team members to interrupt me at this point the way it happened earlier on, but that took years to develop. The other thing is rules, right? So we have a way of handling communication in order for me to be able to prioritize the things that are important. For example, we use Slack, which is an instant messaging. Beyond our good morning, hello, I'm here, I'm alive, checking in the morning. We're not really using Slack a whole lot unless it's something important that we need to chat about that's time sensitive. So for example, the judge's chambers called, they need a letter, today agreeing to this amended onset or confirming that the claimant hasn't worked since this date or whatever it might be. That's something that's time sensitive. If a judge calls and they want something right away, well then I don't care what I'm doing, I'm dropping it if I'm available, obviously. But otherwise, for just general inquiries, I'm going to be off this day or so-and-so called this client. No, we're not doing that on instant messaging because I would never get anything done. How could I write? How can I review financials? How can I prepare for taxes? How could I prepare for hearings? How could I do this video that I'm doing right now? I wouldn't be able to get things done if I was constantly available. This, I have to say, is very much a shift for me because all the jobs that I've ever had, the managers, the owners of the businesses or firms that I worked for have always had what they call an open door policy. So in other words, if you have something going on, whether it's work related, if it's a question, anything, a personal issue that is affecting work, we have an open door policy, meaning, come to me at any time, interrupt me. So I always thought that was the right thing to do. And I always thought that as a leader or a business owner that you should have an open door policy because it's all I ever knew. So it wasn't until I gave myself permission to deviate from that norm that things got a lot easier for me when I really started to enforce it. What I mean by that is there came a point where I was kind of lax for a long time about it when I realized how serious it is. And for me, how serious it is because I have so much on my plate and the stress it would cause me to not be able to get things done and not feel prepared. For me, it became so serious that I drew a line in the sand where I was like, listen, the rule is, if it is an urgent matter and if it fits this criteria, then you can instant message me. If it is client related and it's about a case, if it's a question about a case, whatever the case might be, then it goes in our case management software, our internal messages. If it meets this criteria, then it must go in an email, for example, time off or something like that. There's different modes of communication that we have, and there's very strict rules related to how we communicate with each other in different platforms. And that doesn't go both ways. So I can interrupt my team members if I need to, and they know that, but they can't interrupt me. And that's because they're in the spot that I used to be in, right? They have deadlines, they have specific tasks that they have to complete. And so they don't have the stressors or the need to prioritize. They definitely have to prioritize, but the way that I do, right? Like I have so many things that I'm in charge of, right? Like taxes, finance, new client onboarding, new client offboarding, federal court briefs, administrative level briefs, social media, marketing, so many things. So I have to make sure that I'm able to fit it all in and take care of myself and make sure that clients are taken care of and team members are taken care of. This level of prioritization and this way of prioritizing is what works for me. So I hope you found this video helpful. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.